All right. Well, we are a couple minutes in, gang, so I think we can get this show on the road. Welcome to the second Ousel Town Hall and the first Town Hall presentation of 2025. Um, my name is
What year?
Stephen Rice.
What year is it?
2024. Did I say 2020? Oh my God.
We've
Thank you, Kris.
gone into the
Thank you.
future.
Maybe it's construction project 24, 25 is that hyphenated thing is in my brain. Anyway, thank you, Kris.
Sure.
2024. And we're absolutely delighted to have you all here today for a much anticipated presentation. I'll ask does anyone have any pressing Ousel announcements that they would like to make before we get started here today? Thank you for those who are introducing yourselves in the chat. Thank you, Anne. And as we've mentioned before, we are recording due to the demand for this presentation. Hearing no announcements or anything else Ousel related, we will get started. So it is my pleasure today to introduce a man who needs no introduction, Christopher Turner, Associate Director at the University of Wisconsin Law Library, WLA past president and Ousel superstar. He will be telling us today about generative AI and its applications for libraries and implications for libraries. Take it
Thank
away,
you
Kris.
thank you, Stephen. Thank you for having me. Also, it's always the best place to be is the special library gang. I'm happy to be back with you doing one of these town halls. Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is meant to be a pretty informal one. I have formal slides, but jump in if you have questions in the chat or just unmute yourself. We can have a conversation about this. So we're going to go through this and just discuss it with everyone and see what you think, because this is a really interesting, exciting area that is developing as we speak. There's stuff in here that I just added this morning because it happened yesterday. So we'll just start talking about that as well. So as Stephen said, I'm at the University of Wisconsin Law Library. I'm the Associate Director of Public Services here, but I also teach a legal technology course in the law school. So we've done a lot of work with generative AI and how you can use it for research in that way. So let's start talking about how things have changed. First of all, is this actually a valuable tool? What's going to happen here with AI? It came into being only about 13 or 14 months ago. Around Thanksgiving of 2022 is when ChatGPT arrived and started to shake things up. This is really getting adopted very quickly by a lot of places, but not by everything, not by everybody. Some people are skeptical. I have a few examples here. So Amazon has actually used AI to help match up resumes with open positions. So they use AI, artificial intelligence, and ML, machine learning, to enhance hiring experience. So AI reads the resume, they see what your skills are, and they try to match it with the position that's open. So an interesting way to just go through was probably a lot of different applicants for Amazon. Nordstrom uses analytics and AI generated data to better understand their customers. They have over 100 different AI tools, as I remember reading about this, but one of them is called a fashion map, where they look at the clothes people are wearing, interact with them on social media or just walking into their stores, and they use that to say, oh, they're wearing this kind of thing. Maybe we should push that, or this looks like the changing kind of fashions right now. So they're using that data that they are collecting when you interact with them or you visit their store to try and make your customer experience better. Now, some of you might have some disconcerting thoughts about that. Is it a privacy situation? Is it invasive, or are they just enhancing and assisting? There's a good question for us all as we continue to go through all this. Estee Lauder over in London has used AI in an interesting way, where it's a tool that you put on your phone, and for people that are visually impaired, it tells you how to apply the makeup more equally on your face. So it's like holding a mirror up to your face, but for visually impaired folks, it says you have a little bit more over here, a little bit less over there. Interesting way of using AI to help someone in that way. And my most favorite one, if you saw me do this at WLA, that we actually tried this. We have Coke, which used AI and their taste engineers to create an entirely new flavor last fall called Coke Y3000 or Coke Y3K. It designed the flavor, it designed the label. Has anybody tried this? You feel free to chime in if you have, or just say it in the chat or something. I'm curious if anyone has dared to do so, to take the plunge. That's good because the reason I'm not drinking it right now is I don't want to spit it out all over the camera while we're trying to have a professional discussion here. I don't think it's very good. It's like Go-Gurt plus Coke plus, I don't know, root beer plus something else, but each to their own. Try it out if you want. It's a good way to see how AI is being integrated in a way that is very unique. So I'm just curious to see if you want to mention it on chat or unmute yourself. Give me one or two words about how you feel about AI, about ChatGPT or just AI in general. Val, I'm not surprised. It was fascinating. I know we had some discussions on the WLA app about it. Curious, frightening, no guardrails, ambivalent. Yeah. We'll see if we can move you off the ambivalent, Stephen, by the end of this one to see what you think about it. Intrigued, but a little nervous. Yeah. I think that's a fair place to be right now, Nanette. Carrie, kind of skeptical. Yeah. Oh, overhyped, Sean. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see if that's true or not. Exhausted. I got bad news for you, Helen. There's a lot more coming on that one. But I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, I think that all those are extremely valid. Like, I think a healthy dose of skepticism is warranted here. But also that this is probably around to stay. Like, the thing we're not sure about yet is what kind of level of impact will it have. Is this going to be like the internet being introduced, or is it going to be something that's a tool in the toolbox for research going forward? But it's more than just research, as we'll see as well. So let me get back to my thing here. There we go. So let's just take a step back first. We have just generative AI. So just let's define our terms here. AI systems, what generative AI is, it's an AI system, artificial intelligence system that actually creates new content for you. It is not extracting existing content. So there's an AI tool called extractive AI, where it's just saying, oh yeah, this exists and we found it for you. Yeah, very dangerous, Catherine. I see that now. We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But extractive AI, where it's like you start to type a question into Google and it extracts the answer from what exists on Wikipedia or on a website. That's a form of AI. That's not what we're talking about today, really. Generative AI is something entirely new that is like has never existed before in the same format. And so large language models, which we'll mainly be talking about today, are a subset of generative AI that actually generate text. So that's ChatGPT, that's generating the text. That's Google Gemini. That used to be called Google Bard. It just rebranded like yesterday. Google Gemini is now their new generative AI tool from Google. There's Microsoft Copilot, which you may have heard in the past was the Bing chat. They've also rebranded to Copilot. That's the one, if you read some of the horror stories that wanted to kind of be like, you know what, I think humanity should be destroyed. That sounds like a good plan. That's something I actually got the Copilot AI to say that. And they're like, oh, that's not good. But fortunately, we're all still here. We're still kicking. The Copilot AI got the help it needed, and we're okay for now. But so you can see that those are three of the different large language models we'll talk about. I mentioned Lexis Plus AI and CoCounsel because in the law school, those are two law-specific generative AI tools that sit on top of legal research databases, and we'll show you what that looks like in a little bit. And that's kind of the future of generative AI in many ways. But that is something that lawyers are keeping very close tabs on because it's a whole new way to do research and generate memos and court filings and all that kind of good stuff. And then we'll take a real quick look at image and voice generators, which goes back to the implications for deep fakes and things like that. That image I have on the screen, that was created by Google Gemini. That is a fake image. So I'm curious to see if anyone like that is, can anyone see anything that says in there that's a fake image? I thought it was pretty hyper realistic for a generative AI. But I think generally it came out okay. I see some problems with it. But here's another one it created for us. The prompt I gave it was, I want a special librarian helping a patron do research. And this is what it came up with. Kind of yeah, exactly. So this one has some weird hands on it. Like there's a missing hand on the patron. And then on this one, I don't even know what's on the table. I'm confused about what we are studying in this situation. It appears that the person sitting down might be missing legs. Yeah, it looks like a video game that's kind of like a early days for video games. So that is one of the things that we'll try out. I'm going to jump out of our presentation and actually take a look at some of these things. So you should be able to now see, can everyone see Google Gemini up on their screen? Silence and nodding heads means a good thing. Yeah. All right. So, what should we ask? Does anyone want to ask a question? We're going to race it against ChatGPT and Copilot. Is there any fun question we should ask these things? I have a couple I can try, but I want to always take suggestions from the audience to see what we can get here. While you all are thinking, we'll take a look at this one really quickly. This is called Play HT. Okay, yeah, Catherine, we'll ask about the tornado in Evansville and see what it'll do. That's a good one for a couple reasons. So this is a voice generator, a cloner. So what I did is I cloned my voice on this free tool. All you have to do is record your voice for 30 seconds and upload it, and then it can have your voice say anything that you type into this screen, and you can give it different emotions. So you see it says disgust right now. We could have it be, we'll do fear. I want to see what I sound like when I'm fearful. Let's try this one. So what the idea is that this is going to generate speech for us with me sounding like me in a fearful way. So it's going to take its time and generate this in my voice. We'll come back and check on that in a minute. But now let's go ahead and ask, let's see, Stephen and Catherine, I'm going to start with your question for this is, let's ask, why was there a tornado in Evansville, Wisconsin last night? I like this question for a few reasons. Let's see what Gemini will give us. There you go. Interesting that the National Weather Service has not officially confirmed one. So Google Gemini is saying, here's where you can learn more about it. So I want to try this same question in ChatGPT, which I have up right here. And we'll try the same one. Yep, that's exactly. That's what I was hoping ChatGPT would say. This is an important thing to know with ChatGPT, the free version 3.5, is it is only up to date through January of 2022. We are talking 2 years out of date for information for ChatGPT. However, as you can see, Gemini is up to date and can give you this information. Let's see what Copilot would do for us here. First ever recorded February tornado. This one, you can see, is a little bit different. This one is not saying anything that it was not. This one says it did confirm it, actually. They link out to it. So I love this because this is giving us 3 very different answers for the exact same question. So this one says it's important to note they haven't confirmed a touchdown. There's some videos that were uploaded. National Weather Service hasn't issued an official report as of this morning. And here's some more places to check. ChatGPT punted because they say you're not paying for the actual version, so we are not up to date. And then Microsoft Copilot gave us a lot of links right there and some articles to check out. So thank you, Catherine. I really appreciate that question because it gave me a lot of different things to do there. Yes, thank you. So let's go back to our generated voice. I'm going to play it. You should be able to hear it. Here we go.
Generative, I will take over the world in 5 years.
Could everyone hear that? That was me being fearful. Also, it did not read AI correctly. Did you hear that? So it couldn't understand what AI is. But that was me being very scared, apparently, about generative AI taking over the world in 5 years. Let's try just the default for it. And I'm going to regenerate it. Because I agree, the fearful one doesn't sound like me. Let's try just default.
Generative AI will take over the world in 5 years.
How about that one? That sound more like me? Yeah, maybe you just all haven't heard me when I'm really scared. I'm just never fearful. That's what it is. Maybe I do actually sound like that. Yes. So there you go. This literally is free. You can go and create the account and have this free, record your voice for 30 seconds. It also has a lot of different files in here that are just default voices. So you can also use other just AI generated voices. So that is kind of where we're at with some of the large language models that you can use for research. Yes, it can keep your voice. Yes, you can delete your voice out of here. So you just want to make sure you have that it's locked down to your profile, but you can delete it and remove it out there. You can see I'm not paying for it, so it's a free version. So let's go back to our presentation. So those are some of the tools that are out there. These are some of the results that we have seen. Like I said, I created these images with Google Gemini. So you can do that right now. Google Gemini is a free thing with, if you have a Gmail account, Google account, you can use Google Gemini right away. ChatGPT is free with a sign up for 3.5, and Google and Microsoft Copilot is free for anyone to use right now. So let's take a look here and see what else we got. So we have seen how it works. Let's take a little bit of some pitfall rubbernecking and see what some of the problems are. I think you can start to understand it. But here's what's happening in the real world. So when your lawyer uses ChatGPT, this happened last May in New York, and it's happened many times since then, unfortunately, for some people, is they just ask ChatGPT to write a court filing and then turn it in. And you know what ChatGPT does is it makes up cases. It's called hallucination, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So there were 9 made up cases that were turned into the judge, and they could not find this stuff. It's obviously, that's a problem when it comes to the law or anything else. You're relying on false information. The way that the lawyer that did this checked is said, ChatGPT, are these real cases? And ChatGPT says, yes, those are real. And it just was wanted to satisfy the question. Also, Samsung banned the use of AI like ChatGPT because an employee was asking it questions and uploaded internal work product that was proprietary, and ChatGPT took that information, learned from it, and is now part of their system and can actually use that to answer other people's questions. So if you're using internal sensitive work product, you have to be aware of what you are giving to AI, like your voice, for example, or just sensitive information about your clients, your patrons, or just internal things that you don't want to share like that, because AI can learn from what you're giving it and use it for the results that output it. You can also see, like, what is this being trained on? You could ask it to write something in the style of Stephen King, and it'll spit something back out. But it was trained on copyrighted materials like Stephen King novels and a lot of other authors. So is that something that's viable? Because if you ask it correctly, it could start to give you something that is very similar or actually copyrighted with these materials already. So there are problems that are underlying this training already. So there have been some responses to this. First of all, this is a court certification that in Texas, they require you to certify if you have used AI in any way for your filings. This is in response to all the false case law that have been filed. So if you use ChatGPT or Google Gemini or anything, they say you have to tell us you used it and in what way you have used it. Schools for a while there were just saying you cannot use this, but that kind of started to roll back a little bit. They're like, okay, now we want to try to actually embrace it because we want students to understand how to use this correctly. The initial response was, this is just going to be cheating. People are just going to ask the question, get an answer for an essay, and then there we go. But now they're saying if we just exclude it, people are going to use it no matter what. And finally, there's actually something called poisoning going on, where people are uploading false information for the training data for these tools. And because they have garbage in, they also are giving garbage back out to people. So like they're actually giving it poor information. This is where I'll say ChatGPT and Google Bard and Microsoft Copilot are drawing from the wild world of the internet, which, as we all know, is full of all sorts of different sources that are both reliable and not so reliable. So to start with, things might be incorrect, but now people are actively trying to poison the well for what these things are drawing from potentially. So those are some of the rubbernecking that we'll do. Let's talk about the perils and the pitfalls for using these things. So as I said, AI is dependent on training data. As we just saw, it has outdated information. ChatGPT just cannot answer anything that's happened since January of 2022 for the free version. It has a lot of bias and misinformation where it might accidentally give you wrong information, or people have purposely given it wrong information, so it will go and give that back to you. There are some privacy issues, like our Samsung friends that lost their proprietary stuff. It can scrape that, and then that input can become an output that way. And then it could understand, if you give it too much information, it could start to learn who you are and kind of make its answers appropriate for you, which is also kind of an interesting problem. And then it's overzealous and it hallucinates. The phrase that we have seen often is that AI is like an assistant that sometimes lies to please you. So you have that person that's like, oh, I really want to answer this, my boss's question. It's this. And they just make up something just to try to make you, they give you what you want to hear, right? Sometimes that's what AI is doing for us. However, I'm not done. There's more. There's more concerns. As I mentioned, there's copyright concerns. So if you're training on copyright, you're training on copyrighted works? Is that output now copyrighted in some way, or is that fair? Are you sharing authorship? Right now, if you were to create an image or get generated text from it, you are the author of that stuff because you're just working with the AI tool because you asked it to do it that way. But that is probably not entirely settled, in my opinion. Cheating. There's a lot of, like, I think I saw this in the chat a little bit further up. There's a lot of concern in the educational community about cheating on this. Like if you have a take in the law school world, you have take-home essays that take 24 hours. So you have the students take home the exam. They have 24 hours to do it. And they could just upload that question into AI and ask it to start to spit things back out. And that's really starting to change things. And the same thing goes for any level of education. Like if it's any kind of take-home homework or just in school, could they use this and to what extent? And related to that, there's a lot of questions and concern about a loss of originality or creativity. Like this is drawing from the known universe of the internet or whatever its training data is. But people are going to maybe just rely on that and not go beyond it. Like they just accept what they get and not try to build off of that. Because like, oh yeah, that's good enough. And you turn that in or you just use that for your final product, but you have not actually contributed more to it. So that's just a kind of an existential concern with AI. I'll know another kind of larger existential concern is this might deepen divides between the haves and the have-nots. So I kind of mentioned earlier, there's the legal research tools, Lexis Plus AI and CoCounsel. Those will live inside proprietary databases that you have to pay for. Those are less likely to hallucinate and make up cases. They still could, but they're less likely to do so. Whereas ChatGPT, Google Gemini, those drawing from a wider base of data are more likely to hallucinate. So now the people that have access to the free versions are more likely to get tripped up by these tools that give you the wrong information, whereas those that have access to the more costly, expensive tools might be able to get around it. So like that's just a question. They're trying to advocate that this levels the playing field. I'm not so sure it does that yet. So how do you talk to these things? Well, we were just talking to our students about this, and they said, I really liked what one student said is they said, I have to unlearn how I Google stuff when I'm working with AI, because Google is you're just kind of putting in keywords and trying to do quotes and all these kind of things. That's not how you do a prompt for AI. There's a whole little cottage industry that's kind of sprung up overnight called prompt engineering, which is how you create an appropriate way of getting your answer that you want out of the AI. And so these are the 6 Ps that kind of boil down a potentially complicated process into how the steps to go through the prompting. So first of all, you want to prime it. So you want to give the AI context for what you are going to want and who you are. So like if you're a lawyer, like I'm an intellectual property lawyer working in Madison, Wisconsin with clients that have problems with someone stealing their trademark or something like that. So you're kind of giving it a position that you want to go off of. However, when you're doing that, you do not want to give it too much information. Don't say, I'm working with Stephen Rice, who makes this much this year, has really had some, whatever kind of problems. And the AI can learn from that, and you could spill that private information out there. Stephen, I hope that's not the case. I don't want you to have any problems. I hope that never have to represent you with any kind of intellectual property problems. So make sure you're priming it correctly, but not too much confidential information, if any. Next, the persona. So you want to tell it how casual, formal, professional you want it to give back the information for. Like as a lawyer, you'd probably want it professional, or if you're maybe asking it to brainstorm some marketing, I think I again saw that in the chat for communication and marketing. Maybe you want to make it more informal or welcoming or friendly. Give it the perspective of what you want it to do with. So you have your context of who you are and the persona of the perspective. For products, what do you want to get back from it? Do you want to get a court filing? Do you want to get a social media post? Do you want to get a book poster or a book summary? Tell it what you want to get back. Otherwise, you could just be having a conversation about data or research, which may be what you want, but maybe you want to get something more concrete out of it. And then finally, you are ready to prompt. After all those steps, now you're actually typing into the search bar how to prompt for these things. Like give it clear and specific instructions. Like I still am polite with the things. I'll say, please. You saw I did put please into all 3 of them, but you don't want to just be like, please tell me about tornadoes, because it's just going to go off into that big black box of the internet and try to pull in tornadoes. So I like that with Catherine's question, we said last night, Evansville, Wisconsin, tornado. We started to really narrow down. It's just like having a reference interview a little bit. Like, what are we trying to get to here? And then arguably the most important of these 6 P's, maybe privacy is just as important, but polish. Take what you've got and polish it and refine it and continue your conversation with the AI to kind of get down to what you want. You are the one that has to have your fingerprints on it after the AI does it. I've told faculty, students, colleagues in the library world, like I've seen everyone just takes what it gives you and you're done. No, it's not done. You have to take what's next and make sure it actually fits your voice, your style, what it's your goals, and then make sure it's not giving you false information, just as importantly. So that really boils down a lot of work into like the conversations you have with AI. But again, this isn't keywords, this isn't Boolean, this isn't natural language. It's a conversation. You're prompting it to kind of get back to get what you want out of it. So how can libraries use AI? Here's a list of 10 things I came up with for how libraries can use AI and are already using AI. So I am 100% certain that some of you are already using it for these purposes, but maybe not. So first of all, as a starting point, you can start to do research and reference with it. Our students in the law school, they really like it. They're like, okay, this is an entirely foreign concept I have never wrapped my head around. You can start, they've really liked Google Gemini for this because it gives you a nice conversational way of understanding complicated points of law. I say you can start there to kind of be like, okay, here's some terms of art, here's terminology to kind of understand what the fundamental language is for it, and then take that to trusted resources that you start to do the research on. So we're all trained to do this kind of stuff, and you can use it as a starting point to kind of wrap your head around it. Brainstorming, wordsmithing. This one is probably, I think, the most important. We've all been stuck. Like, how do I want to say this in email? How do I say this in a letter? How do I, whatever. This is a great way to kind of get new words, new concepts down in black and white, so to speak, and then take that and improve it. Because in my experience, AI either gives it to you a little bit too cold or clinical, or a little bit too overly friendly. It kind of goes to the extremes. And that's where your voice comes in to make sure you're taking that wordsmithing and continuing to refine it. You can do some really great reader advisory and book summaries like, hey, my book club group really liked this book. What are some other related books or some other suggestions? It can really help you with that. And a great thing that some AIs can do is you can actually upload a paper or something, and it'll say, give me the high points for just this, summarize this thing for me. And so it can do that with books. So if you say, give me a 2-paragraph summary of Animal Farm, or something else like that, it can do that on the spot. Again, it's been trained on that stuff. It can read that book like that and just get you all that information. Creating displays and signage. I'm 100% certain that someone here has created a signage or PowerPoint or something with AI, because it has a lot of great abilities to give you good stuff that way. Come up with those marketing concepts and themes online, the social media posts. Like, what can I do to kind of engage people online? What shouldn't I do online? What are some cool things that libraries can do to pull in new patrons, to do outreach to people that don't typically visit the library? What themes can I do for a story time? These are more, it's kind of related to brainstorming and wordsmithing, but in particular for marketing, which I think it's really powerful with as well. You can also do some very basic cataloging and indexing with it. One thing they all do is you can say, create a MARC record for this book. Now it's kind of copy cataloging, but it can give you a fundamental basic of foundation for cataloging, which is kind of interesting to see. If we have time, I can try to show you an example of what that looks like. But you can also index books this way, like start to organize books in some way with it, or just resources, I should say. You can develop lessons plans, scripts, presentations. I used my own brain for this presentation, but I've seen many people that say, I have used this with an assist done this with an assist from AI, that have said, I want to get this point across with this kind of form. This is my audience. And it'll kind of give you a run through of what you should cover for scripts or lesson plans. And then this is more of like what you have to do. You have to teach and advocate, because I'm betting all of you, yeah, Sean, you're all right, Sean. We'll talk about more in a minute. To teach and advocate how to use this correctly, because I bet your patrons are coming in and either are aware of it or should be aware of it. Most importantly, those pitfalls we just talked about, uploading proprietary or confidential information, talking with it in the proper way to get the information you want out of it. That's how you can teach and how to advocate to use it in the smart, efficient way. Finally, you can, 2 last ones, you can supplement cybersecurity. You're like, hey, this email I got looks a little suspicious. And you could kind of put in the parts that don't mention your names. Like, is this a spam email or a spam text? And they can kind of search that and say, yeah, that's a spam, most likely. So you can kind of supplement cybersecurity in that way, or just help you kind of put up more firewalls if you have a website. Finally, this is really making those irritating chatbots all the better. They're more interactive. You can actually have a more closer to human conversation with these things now that they understand a wider range of questions. So it's really coming along here. We'll try it, Sean, and see. We'll give it a shot and see what it's doing. But finally, you can also adhere to laws. So in Iowa, they actually asked ChatGPT to read the books that were in the school library, because the law passed in Iowa said you couldn't have sexually explicit materials in the school library. So they asked for book summaries. They say, are there any sexually explicit scenes in Jane Eyre or Pride and Prejudice? And if ChatGPT came up with it, they would remove that book from the library. And so, like you can see, they used it to kind of just be more efficient. We have more important things to do than to read all these books. So, I mean, you can feel one way or the other about that, but that is a way that ChatGPT was actually used in the real world by some librarians. You can also, I had spoken with a few Chamber of Commerce folks, and this was really interesting stuff, like how the U.S. Chamber of Commerce suggests you can use AI for just businesses in general. LinkedIn has a great topic on it, so I'll share these slides with you, Stephen, if you want to send this out with the recording, because this is all linked on here. And so if you want to just take it to the next level, this is for businesses in general, but I think there's a lot of explicitly helpful things for libraries as well. So we got about 3 or 4 minutes left, Stephen. So we'll just go through this really quickly. How else will generative AI be used? This is kind of the next step. It'll be laying on top of a known data system. So this is called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. So you have a ChatGPT, Google Gemini tool that sits on top of the content that you trust. So perhaps it's just sitting on top of your library catalog, or sitting on top of a database like JSTOR or something like that. And then from that, it can pull in the information, because it's just drawing from a known universe of data, not from the black box that is the internet. So that automatically kind of narrows down its search. It can still hallucinate, but it's not drawing from potentially poisoned sources, either inadvertent or purposely done poisoned sources. One thing that's really coming is they can sit on top of internal documents. So I'm going to show a real quick video of Microsoft thing that's actually out now. This is also called Microsoft Copilot, where it can sit on top of all your Office products and read it through. I'll show you what it looks like. So I don't need to really be a shill for Microsoft, but this is just showing you the potential here. So what Catherine, I'll answer your question in a second. So the big thing that this will do is sit on top of your Office tools. So this is not something that is like a wide thing that's learning from either your content. This is like you typing into your Office Word product. It's a little more private that way. This is not something that is revealing confidential data. This is not ChatGPT learning from what you have typed and taking it out to other people. This is your instance of Microsoft Copilot. It's not connected to other people, if that makes sense. So when you're talking to ChatGPT or Google Gemini, that's just the large language model searching. That is learning from you and could talk to other people. This, you purchase a license on your own that sits on top of your Office license. So like if you're working with Office tools already, this is going to be another aspect of it. The biggest thing to me right here is the Excel help. I am not an Excel aficionado, but this one is saying like you have all this data sitting in there and you say, hey, tell me what this means, create some charts, find me a formula that actually tells me this, and it will be able to do that for you. As you can see, it also created a 10-slide PowerPoint based on, then you point it towards a product. As for supervisors scanning anything like that, maybe, like potentially that's always the risk with this kind of thing, but it depends on the licensing as well. That one's probably still a little bit up in the air. But yeah, Apple, I would bet is going to do something similar. I've not heard anything about that, but every company is kind of racing in one way or the other to do some sort of AI tool like this for sure. But you can see the potential here, although also you can see the pitfalls as well, I believe. So are we starting to believe in these things? So just a little bit of a recap. It's a beginning, not an ending for research and other uses. It can hallucinate and give you bad information. It can give you some weird stuff, but you can start there in my experience. It can give you some good stuff to kind of understand what's going on, at least for now. This is going to continue to improve is the other option here. Yeah. Trust but verify. Yep. It is enhancing, not replacing anyone right now. Librarians, lawyers, professionals is not a replacement. We saw some of those images that are a little bit off. You saw the results from those 3 different large language models that we tested out. That is not a replacement for us. You can see it was giving contradictory information. That's where we need to do that trust and verification. So our job as librarians is to be trained and knowledgeable in this. Your patrons are going to ask about it and may even expect you to be using it in some way. So again, like Sean said in the chat, try it. Please just try it, but test it, and then you verify that accuracy, and then you start to trust the results after that. Yeah, exactly, Catherine. Self-checkouts did not mean the end of CERC staff by any means. You still need people like that. This does not mean the end of cataloging, acquisitions, reference, anybody. This is an evolving tool. It's going to get better. It's getting better already in many ways. And librarians already can use AI in practical ways. I would advocate most for just the brainstorming and just wordsmithing. That's the one I kind of use it for sometimes. And then just so you can see it, I just found this last week. There's a Tech Radar Best AI Tools for 2024. So this will say something like Best AI Tools for voice cloning. And that Play HT I showed you is on there. Or Best Tool for image generation, or just brainstorming, whatever it might be. Pretty nice, helpful little link there. And that's it. We got to the end. We did it in like 35 minutes, Stephen. I'm feeling pretty proud of myself for that. So if there are any other questions, I'm happy to do that. Or we could try to create the mark record, Sean, if you'd like to, and see what you think. We'll give it the pros touch, the pros critical eye.
Well, thank you so much, Kris. Yes, let's open it up to questions, comments, concerns, any particularly entertaining prompts that you've created that you'd like to share with us. I'm curious about the Sean comment from Carrie.
Sean is our head of cataloging here at University of Wisconsin Law Library. And so I'd mentioned cataloging. So I think Carrie's like, look out, is kind of what that one came from.
Gotcha.
But again, Sean is irreplaceable in so many levels. So I think she'll be all right. There's always, I mean, these LLMs are drawing from servers, right? They're living on a server. So there is like these server farms that are doing this. And that's always a consideration for that, just with the amount of computer power it takes to do some of this. Some of the ways I've seen, this is Helen's question in the chat, should we be worried about the energy environmental costs of these LLMs is what she asked. Some of the places that are using ChatGPT to kind of underlie their use of AI, they'll charge you by question, which is then charged back to them for each ChatGPT use. And I think that pays for the environmental costs a little bit, but it is just something to be aware of. For sure. I know that's not a great answer, but it does take up a lot of server space. It will probably improve over time, but right now it is taking up a healthy amount of it.
I have a question for you, Kris. What triggered your interest in this? I've seen that you've published, you've been quoted in the Milwaukee Journal on this, and what started this area of research for you? So
when I was first hired on the reference staff at the law library, I was the reference and technology librarian. So that was kind of like that was years ago. But so I had to start with just investigating tech that would be helpful for students and for faculty to use for research. And then a couple of years ago, I started teaching, because of that, I started teaching law practice technologies to law students. That's the name of the course I taught. And when that happens, we have to stay on top of the tech. And this is a tool that is going to affect lawyering and librarianship. And so my interest is not forced, but it's just I have to, because it has to be given on to students because they are going to use it. And if they're not using it correctly, you can see immediately the problems that can happen if they're not using it in the correct way. And so I feel an obligation to both stay on top of it and to share it with students in particular, but of course with colleagues as well. I love to get feedback from everyone about like how it's changing and how they've used it, because I like to do it as well, to learn more from you all as well. I was talking to some Watertown folks last week. I did a presentation there, and it was a lot of just people that lived in Watertown and how they use it. And it was really great to see just how folks are using it out in the wild world. And mostly they're using it to kind of get inspiration, which was really interesting.
Catherine has a question in the chat. How much are tech companies invested in combining AI and robotics? Seems like the next step.
I have not heard about the combo yet, but I know there's an enormous amount of money into just AI. I think that they're still fine tuning. That would be my kind of gut instinct for why there might not be more into AI and robotics, but it is definitively coming. I can say that confidently as either a optimist for the future or a cynic for the future, is that you'll probably see robots that are integrating more of these AI tools and you can interact with them. You can imagine these kind of things, like you're just talking to a bypassing robot waiter. You're like, excuse me, I like more water. Like, water, and it'll just bring it back out. And I just saw that like last week, just a machine that brings out things to your table. You still need humans to take it off the plate and put it on the table, but it's getting it out to the correct table already.
So in reference to your question or comment previously, Catherine, I think we're 70 years behind Asimov, but we're getting there very quickly.
Yeah.
Did we want to try the creating a record?
Yeah, sure.
I'm really curious to see what this looks like.
Let's try this one. I'm sorry, Sean. Let me get the chat back up and I'll get that ISBN. Yeah, you can see Sean gave me an ISBN number in the chat, so I'm going to copy that. So we got that one rolling. Let's try this one. We have hit the limit of what I can do for reading catalog mark records. So I defer to the tech services folks and the catalogers present to see what they think about this.
Thoughts and feelings. Feel free to unmute.
You can see Google they're hedging their bets a little bit here at the bottom. Old coding of data.
An understated roast from Sean.
I'm gonna go up. Let's try ChatGPT and Copilot. I suspect it'll be very similar. While that's doing that, we'll get another one going here.
So we're putting those in. Catherine comments that the rise of AI is causing its use more and more in customer service. The AI does not understand my question. I'll have to develop a whole new set of social skills for dealing with AI.
Yeah, exactly. You have to. It is just like I said, you have to unlearn some Google tools when you're working with AI. You also have to now, like the old robo phone trees, you'd be like, just press 1 and get out of it. But now the AI might know that you're trying to do that and get out of that one as well. So you see this one has 264, Sean, Copilot, instead of 260. So that's kind of interesting. But this one seems very simplified beyond that. You can see, there you go, learn more at Library of Congress. I didn't see ChatGPT. Yeah, there's 264 on that one too. And then Gemini. 260. Again, we have 2-to-1. So you can see that it's fun to race them against each other and see what they'll give you, because it's going to be different every time.
It's very interesting that folks who are in the know can actually intuit where the information has come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that's what we tell our students. Is we've had our students vet the legal cases that they have done. They're like, oh yeah, that's a good case. We're like, well, how'd you know that? Like, well, because I already researched it. Therefore, you know it's good. So they just kind of did it backwards. So you have to, again, like Sean put it very succinctly in the chat: trust and verify, and then trust. Don't trust and verify. Verify and then trust. Yeah, these are just some of the examples, Carrie. Gemini has a title in the O10. Let's see. Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Yeah, interesting. You know, this one doesn't have anything, by the way. You see, ChatGPT just gave us like, here are the fields you might want. Then you can see like volume, test title, Copilot. Again, same thing. It's like, here's just generic stuff. Very interesting that Gemini actually tried to take the book itself and fill it in. Again, so you can kind of see where this is pulling from. This actually gave you some sources, which is nice to see. It is a unique skill. I agree. Yeah. I just did a I just spoke with a faculty member here yesterday or 2 days ago, and we asked it for cases. And the very first case that Gemini gave us was a made up case. Very first one. And then we said, that's a fake case, and said, oh, sorry, I got confused. Here's the real case. And then got it right the second time. So that's the verification. Yeah, we don't have the 245 in there. This one said, here's where the title should go for ChatGPT and for Copilot.
Perfect illustration of cataloging as an art and not just a science.
Yes. But any other questions? Anything else you want me to try with these three? Anything else you want my clone voice to say? But yeah, the bottom line now is try it, see what you can get out of it. Your patrons are going to be trying it and asking questions about it, so don't get caught flat-footed, and it's going to improve as it becomes more trained and it gets more specific, like where you purchase a subscription to your Office product that then sits on top of all your internal data. But again, thanks for having me, everybody. Thank you, Stephen. I hope this was helpful, interesting. Feel free to share it, and I'll give you the slides as well.
This was absolutely fantastic, Kris. Thank you so much. What a great, thorough presentation. I really appreciated the fun demos too. Really wonderful. So everybody, feel free to stick around. I'm going to keep the meeting open for another 10 minutes in case anyone wants to sit, chat, discuss what we've just heard. As Kris mentioned, we'll share out both the recording and the slides, so feel free to share those with your cohort, help to spread this information so we can increase that knowledge base. It's what it's all about here at OWSL. Just as a reminder, we will have a coffee chat again on the 8th of March. Again, 10:30. This time we'll be talking about overcoming challenges of any kind, really, that you face professionally, and what your strategies are for that as our loose topic of the day. So come armed with coffee and ready for chat. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Kris, again for your presentation. And we look forward to seeing all of you again next month.
Thank you, Kris.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Have a good
Great
weekend.
job. Great job. That was really interesting.